All right, is this thing on? Testing. Oh, there we go. Just had to push the button. All right. Good morning, everyone. Let's try that again. I think we're all out a little too late last night, so drink your water and let's try this again. Good morning. All right. So welcome to day 2 of the Apache Roadshow Chicago. My name is Paulin, just in case you don't know who I am. I've been working with Trevor on getting this conference organized for the last couple of months. So really exciting to see this all kick off yesterday. Meeting a lot of new folks. And hopefully folks that are not familiar with kind of the Apache culture or been to any Apache conference, hopefully you're feeling right at home. If not, just let me know if there's anything that is you think we could do better for next time. Anything that we're doing right, we like positive feedback as well. We've got the schedule up for today, so I'm here saying good morning to you all. That was on my list. We've got lunch after we're done in here, and that's going to be back at Revolution. So if you're not familiar, Revolution is that way down the street on the left side if you're going that way. This is Emporium, so we've got talks here. This is going to be both the diversity and the ad tech track. So if you're looking for talks on that, this is the place you'll come back to after lunch. If you want to stay in Revolution, that's where I'm going to be staying. Within Revolution, which one is that? That's going to be the FinTech track. So I'll be running and emceeing the FinTech track. So if you want the FinTech track, just stay where you're at for lunch. And if you're going to go to Made in Chicago, the Native is down the street. You got to cross one street and it'll be on the right. So the Native is where we'll be doing the Made in Chicago track. And we give 20 minutes between talks, so if you need to travel between the different tracks, you should have plenty of time to do that. So once again, I just want to thank our sponsors, Google Cloud, for being able to provide all this here. We've got drink tickets and things on swag up front. Talk to Trevor if you're looking for extra tokens and tickets, because we have them, and you should definitely hit him up for those things. I've seen the swag kit. They've got hats. They've got all sorts of connectors and things like that. So go check it out. And we've got where are the Google people? All right. If you want to know more about if you want to know more about Google Cloud, these are the people you need to talk to. All right. And with that, I've got a little bit of time and a captive audience. So I'm going to actually give you a preview of a talk that I submitted to ApacheCon. So this is the short version of this talk. It's basically lightning talk format. And if my screen decides to cooperate, you'll get to see it. Let's see. Maybe this guy. Yes, there we go. So this is a talk I've been thinking about, especially because in my line of work, my line of work, first of all, is an independent consultant. So I come into projects working for clients, and the one thing that's common about all of them as a consultant, you don't have any actual power. All you have is influence. So coming from someone that works in open source and really likes the culture in open source, trying to bring some of that sanity to your clients is sometimes a challenge. And it's one that I've kind of learned to deal with, of being able to bring Apache culture without actually having any authority to do so, or and many times permission even to do so. So I'd like to share a little bit of that with you all today. So just to start off with, who's familiar with the Apache way? See, everybody should be doing this because there's no real codification of the Apache way. So when I go and show these things, we can argue and debate this, and it often gets debated on the list what exactly this is. But this is the probably closest consensus-based definition that we have, that nobody has like -1 or completely shot down. So I'm going to present this to you. So you've got community over code, so being able to have code that is maybe not perfect, but meets the needs of the community. Consensus-driven decision-making. We're not dictators. We are looking to build communities of people that agree on certain things. Even though we may not agree exactly, we get to a point where we're at least happy. It's good enough. Open communication, everything we do is public. Authority in Apache is earned. You're not given it. You have to prove yourself through doing good work. We're a community of peers, so there's no hierarchy. There's really two levels. There's the committers, POC, and then maybe above that you've got the board, but really the board is servicing all of those other groups, so it's kind of an intertangled hierarchy. But really we're all peers. There's no buy-in to get more authority. And then responsible oversight, so doing the right thing. So within Apache, these are some values that we have, and what most of my clients that are kind of agnostic to these things don't realize is these are values that if they have in their company would be very beneficial for them. So what I'm going to talk about is some different things that you may want to bring to your companies, even if you don't have that title of VP or director or manager or anything that would give you just to say, we will do it this way because I say so, but still get some of the benefits of this culture. These are the excuses we usually use when we're trying to justify why we don't bring these things to our companies. But again, we're gonna blow those away. So the very first thing I want to start with is eliminating tribal knowledge, and this pairs really well with the whole Apache thing. But first I feel I have to define tribal knowledge, because this isn't my term, this is a term actually one of the first managers I worked for used kind of incessantly, and he was not an Apache person at all. But it's that knowledge that are in your companies that don't get disseminated to other groups. So it's like almost like guarded information. There's the one person that knows how this database or this other application works. And the bad things that leads to is you end up with bus factors of 1 in multiple places within your companies. And this falls under two of the different values, is building a community of peers and responsible oversight and eliminating these things. And the thing that I've seen that has helped in this area is being able to create documentation, example content for the folks that are going to be coming in from outside of said tribe. And I think that's the really key term, is when you're putting together documentation or examples where you're trying to disseminate knowledge, you have to be really focused on who those outsiders are to that knowledge space, so that you can write that documentation assuming that these people aren't in tune with kind of the acronyms or the different ways. So you're essentially writing the documentation for somebody that is not in said tribe that possesses said knowledge. So taking that approach, when you have an open source project, it's a very small group of individuals doing the actual work with usually a larger base of users. So having this mentality that I'm writing towards somebody that is not in my peer group is a good philosophy to have when you're building content on some of these things. And just accepting internally that this is bad. Bus factors are bad, and being able to articulate that to your clients or employers. Transparent decision making. Inside of companies, people are making decisions all the time, and many of those decisions are happening directly between two people. Many of those decisions don't necessarily need to be private. One thing we do at Apache is we put all the things on the list. If it didn't happen on the list, they say it didn't happen. So taking a philosophy inside your company that at least the decisions that I'm involved with, I'm going to be posting it out to chat in a public channel for all those parties that may be engaged in that decision or impacted by that decision. And making that decision process open to all the players that could be involved. One thing that this does is when you make decisions behind closed doors, people don't always buy into those decisions because I wasn't involved. Nobody told me that this was decided, so I'm not going to do it. By making it public, you end up getting more buy-in, and that's what most decisions is. The idea is, I'm going to make this decision, we are going to make this decision, and then we're going to move forward with it. No, if you put it in the public, nobody feels left behind. Pairing up with the last one, another kind of side effect of making decisions in public is not everybody's going to participate, but there's always people lurking. junior developers, people that maybe aren't feeling comfortable enough to speak up because they're not really sure whether they're on one side of the decision or they don't have an opinion necessarily. But putting all those things out in the public creates some informal mentoring channels because people are watching this decision-making process. They're seeing how the decisions are made by people that may be more senior than them or have more experience than them in a certain area, and they're able to take that and apply those cultural norms to what they're doing. Having pull requests, that even if you are the quote-unquote benevolent dictator on your internal project, having people on your team reviewing your work, even though you have the commit access, I could just put it in there, but taking the approach that, you know what, I'm going to have somebody on my team review it, even though I might be the most senior person here. Taking that approach, giving them the opportunity to look at your code, look at how you've made your changes, your approach to that, and if they have questions, ask those questions, creates a lot of informal mentoring. And again, none of this, I don't need like my boss's approval to do this. I can just do it and implement that on my own. And finally, encouraging measured risk taking. So a number of folks on projects, they want to make changes, but maybe they don't know how, or they're worried about somebody coming down on them or perhaps criticizing their work. One of the things that we do at Apache is we make small, reversible changes as kind of culturally. If we get a big pull request with 30 modified files from somebody we don't know, that pull request is probably going to get denied or a lot of feedback. By encouraging other developers to create those small incremental changes, we can also encourage them to take some risks. Those may involve making some mistakes, or maybe they implement something that's not the perfect way that we would do it. But by letting them commit into the repository, as long as they're not creating any harmful situations, they may get the opportunity to learn from that, have others in their peer group reply and tell them, well, have you considered this or that to make the code better? And some of that involves, as a person on the project, kind of stepping back and letting these things happen. And finally, the last thing is, when we're working on projects, we don't always agree. So being able to have constructive dissent on your projects is very critical, because when we are deciding on frameworks, when we're deciding on features, directions, and where things go, Apache has a nice model of dissent in the +1, the 0, and the -1. And the driving force is to get everybody where they're in that +1, so everybody agrees. But when that doesn't happen, we have rules in place of what dissent looks like. If you're going to +0 something, it means I don't care. And a lot of times, being able to step back and say, this doesn't impact me one way or another, is a good way of allowing the other team members to kind of assert their authority versus you always blessing or denying a certain thing. The -1, if used properly, is a powerful way that if you're going to dissent, you're not doing it on the basis of authority, but you're doing it on the basis of merit, based on the argument that you're making of why this is not only bad, but harmful, and I need to prevent this from happening because it's going to hurt us down the line. Not I don't want this in there, it's going to actually cause harm to the project. So these are just a few steps, a few things that I've used on my clients in the past without any formal authority that has helped. And if you're looking for the longer version of this talk, if you're reviewing talks for ApacheCon, please +1 this talk. And you'll get an extended version in a few months. Thank you very much. And the next step for all of us is lunch at Revolution, so that's out. And that way we've got, I think we've got a little bit of time before that, because I don't think I took my full time. Yeah, 12:10, so enjoy yourself for the moment and enjoy the second day. Question?
Are there any specific, bite-sized practices or changes in process that you've been able to successfully bring in from the outside that you saw actually it could considered and adopted in some fashion within the command that they can
More effect. Yeah, I mean, so pull request is one of those kind of policies, and making sure that there is reviewing and looking at the comments to make sure, when people are offering dissent and offering feedback, there's a reason for that feedback. So when I'm looking at a pull request, and a lot of this is people are watching what I'm doing and they're trying to model after that behavior because they see it can be effective and they want to model that. So being able to allow some things that maybe I know are not perfect through, maybe comments say, hey, this isn't perfect, but this doesn't make it worse. It does make it a little bit better, and we can fix it later. It does no harm to the community. Like, a lot of developers have come from that mindset that there's a right way to do things, and if it's not right, it can't go in. And kind of breaking down those barriers has been one of the things I think I've at least found is they're just looking for somebody to do that, because a lot of times you get the people in the senior positions, they're just used to saying no to everything. So it's a cultural thing. It takes time. As far as policy, though, I think your question is around policy. Can you give me a little bit more clarity on that, or is that sort of where you were going with that? Processes.
Practices or processes, sure.
I feel for that one, you're going to have to come to the full length talk, because I don't have enough time up here before lunch to actually go into all the policy and practices. But I will be sure to cover that in the longer talk. Any other questions? All right, I'll be around all day, so if you want to corner me, go right ahead. And enjoy day 2.
For those of you making this your home base, you're welcome to do that. Our next presentation here will be the track on diversity. That's at 2:10. So if you're taking off, please come back or just stick around.